Today I'm going to talk about two shmup demos that have strikingly similar aesthetics, but very different gameplay styles. Both of these are games with planned releases in late 2026 whose demos came out earlier in the year, and both clearly borrow their aesthetic identities from the classic Capcom series of shmups that started with 1941 and includes games like 1943, 19XX, etc. Games that use the aesthetics of World War II propeller planes, whether or not they actually deliberately take place during World War II. I think Raiders 1941, which is one of the games I'll be talking about, is actually meant to be a World War II game because it starts off saying that it's in France. Those old Capcom games apparently just take World War II planes and involve them in like an alien invasion subplot similarly to the anime series Strike Witches. And Iron Skies, the other demo I'll be talking about, does not describe that it is in World War II, but it is described as a propeller plane shmup. Both of these demos only have one stage that is probably a minute and a half long, and both of them have pretty simplistic, low-budget graphics, but everything else about them is unique from one another, and that's what I want to dive into. Raiders 1941 feels more like a cave shooter than it does like the old Capcom games. Even though it has a similar aesthetic to the old 19XX games, the bullet patterns, the movement speed, the fact that it has both a fast and a slow mode, the explosions of coins coming out of enemies, the way that the boss moves around, everything about how this game actually plays is more similar to the cave-style bullet hell games that would come out from the late 90s onward than it is the older shmups before the advent of bullet hell into the genre. Iron Skies, on the other hand, feels a lot more pure to the old-school style of arcade shmups. It doesn't really have bullet hell segments. The movement speed is consistent, the firing speed is consistent, and it overall gives a vibe that is more like 19XX than it is like anything that came after that. Raiders 1941 has a garage grunge soundtrack. It sort of sounds comparable to like one of the heavier Soundgarden or Stone Temple Pilots songs, or even some of the butt rock inspired by grunge that came in the early 2000s, something along the lines of like a Nickelback. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's a fun track. I enjoy listening to the Raiders 1941 music, and its toughness fits with the toughness of the game, because Raiders 1941 is fairly difficult. In fact, this short demo took me about half an hour to beat, which is appropriate to the bullet hell shmup genre. It's kind of what I expect. I don't know if this is stage 1 of the final game, but I think it would make a great stage 1. And it would definitely deter people who expect to be able to just blast through a stage as quickly as possible. You get 3 lives at the start of the stage. I don't think it's possible to get an extend during the stage, though you do receive a lot of bomb extends, so you can use a decent number of bombs getting through this stage. But if you make it to the boss, the bullet patterns are pretty difficult. Even if you've got like 1 or 2 bombs, you're going to have to dodge a lot of the bullet patterns. I do think that the faster moving speed of the plane is a little bit difficult to control, but if you're using the slow mode, you can do a pretty good job of circumventing all the bullets. And like I said, while this did take me half an hour, I did beat the demo, and I'm not a very high skill shmup player, but I am experienced enough that I'm on the final stage of Hyper in Blue Revolver. Still haven't beaten it yet. The fact that I felt compelled to keep trying this stage until I beat it, and in fact, I've actually done that more than once, going back to this demo. I've had a good time playing it. It is very routing focused. If you don't figure out a good route through the stage, you will just keep dying. But once you figure out where you can hide, where's a good place to use bombs, it is a stage that feels like you learn it, and it's fulfilling by the time you've beaten it. I do think the aesthetics of Raiders 1941 are sort of chopped, for lack of a better word. It's got a kind of smeared look. I would not go so far as to call it ugly. I think it is serviceable. It looks fine for what it is. I really like the way the bullets look. and that's what really matters. You know, the bullets and the coins, the overall feel is tight. I would say that it's a game that if you're just looking at a screen cap of it, you're going to think, wow, that does not look pretty. But when you're actually playing the game, it feels good to play, and I think that counts for quite a bit. Now, Iron Skies, I would say, is a nicer looking game. It's got a pretty distinctive pixel art aesthetic, and the music is also really nice. It's got this cool trance song, sort of a breakbeat thing going on that I really enjoy. I actually have it stuck in my head after just having played it again. And even though I would say that the way that the bullets look and the movement speed and everything makes Raiders 1941 more exciting to watch, Iron Skies does have a really clean vibe. It feels good, and again, it more so resembles the 19XX games from Capcom. I would say it doesn't look as good as the best from that series, but it definitely looks better than the earliest games in that series. But what really matters is, of course, the gameplay, and the thing about the Iron Skies demo is that it is just very easy. The footage I'm using here is all of me playing on hard mode. There is an easy, normal, and hard. I beat it on normal originally, and it was just so incredibly easy that I was like, okay, let me try that again on hard mode. And even on hard mode, you start off with health and lives and continues. And there are limited continues, but the idea that you would have to use a continue in this game is kind of laughable. I almost never even lost a whole life. I got hit on most of my runs, at least once, but I did not lose an entire life on most of the runs I did. And I did multiple because, again, it's a short stage, it's not very hard, and there are 3 different planes you can choose from. So I tried using all 3 planes. I reduced my life count to 1, I reduced my continue count to 1, I used the weakest plane, and it still wasn't enough to actually take a life off of me. Now, it could be that in the first stage of a game, you don't necessarily want it to be so hard you lose a life, every time you play it. I'm sure that the difficulty should pick up in later stages of the game, and if it's a 1cc run where you've got 1 life and 1 continue, I could see how it could maybe potentially get hard enough for it to feel like, okay, I actually have to learn this game. But playing this demo, I really felt my brain shutting off, and only more so the more I played it. Naturally it's going to get even easier as you learn the routing and as you start trying to maximize the potential of your points earnings and stuff like that. With this stage, it honestly felt like it was trying to give me room to pick up all of the points. The stars that drop when enemies die, they move very slowly down the screen, and even the bullets are pretty slow. The fastest thing is the ships themselves flying through the screen. So the hardest part of this was trying to kill everything as opposed to just dodging and surviving. So I guess score play does add a little bit more challenge, but again, it felt like the score points were falling slow enough for me to pick up all of them while destroying as many enemies as possible. And sometimes it felt like the only thing holding me back from destroying all the enemies was that some of the planes are a little bit slower. You actually have 3 bombs at the start of the stage as well, and I found myself using the bombs against the boss fight, mostly just because the boss felt a bit too long and hit spongy. It's got a whole bunch of turrets on it that are firing at you at the same time as the main central gun, but the thing is, as you destroy those turrets, the boss just gets easier. It only gets weaker. So the longer you fight it, the easier it gets, which I feel is the opposite of how boss design should be in a shmup. You want to get through a phase, and then another phase starts up that is even tougher than the previous phase, so that it feels like there's a sense of progression in the difficulty of the boss fight. In this case, it feels like once you've destroyed most of its turrets, you're just kind of waiting for the thing to die. Total opposite of the Raiders 1941 boss. A significant number of my runs trying to beat it, the demo, were just getting stuck on this boss. And if you're the type of person who's thinking, well, who wants to have to run the same stage over and over again to beat it, maybe Iron Skies is for you. It might be better for people who don't really play a lot of shmups, who aren't looking for it to be this challenge that takes you hours and hours and hours. But to me, the point of shmups is that they are short games with a lot of replay value. That, you know, the fact that it took me 30 minutes to beat this demo means I got a lot of time out of it, and I had fun for that whole 30 minutes. Whereas with Iron Skies, I wasn't having that much fun, and I played it 4 times just to get like 15 minutes worth of footage out of it. Now, this isn't me trying to say that Iron Skies is not good. I think both of these are solid demos. Neither one of them is hateable. I can easily imagine both games getting even more interesting as you progress further into them. Raiders is, as far as I can tell, the very first game from its developer Rutsoft, whereas Iron Skies is made by 171 Dev, who actually has a handful of other indie games like Extinction Zone, Tiny Racing, and 2 other shmups, one called Chromacell and one called Tameshi, which both look pretty interesting. Just looking at the pictures of them, Tameshi looks like more of a bullet hell game, and Chromacell is a horizontal shooter game. Both of them look like they are probably tougher than Iron Skies, but that's just based on what I'm seeing on the website. I have not played them yet. I think if you generally are into shmups, and especially if you like the aesthetics of the 19XX games, it's probably worth checking both of these out. Iron Skies is more similar, again, to the 19XX games. I played a little bit of 19XX, and I was able to clear the first stage on that without getting a game over as well, so I don't think that Iron Skies is particularly less tough than 19XX is. Might be less tough than 1941, the original game, but that is an old school shooter. Raiders 1941, despite sharing half the title with 1941, plays so differently that I think the aesthetics are the main similarity there. All in all, though, I did wishlist Raiders 1941, and I did not wishlist Iron Skies. Personally, that's just a taste preference. One game is closer to the style of games that I've continually enjoyed, and the other one, while fine, did not spark that feeling of, oh, I definitely need to play this entire game and keep coming back to it again and again. But we'll see if that opinion changes when these games are fully out and I can watch other people play them. Maybe if Iron Skies looks like it gets really interesting later, I'll end up picking it up anyways. But Raiders 1941 did inspire that feeling of, wow, you know, it took me a while to beat this first stage, but now that I've learned it, I'm curious to learn another stage. Anyway, that's all I have to say about these demos. Thank you for watching. I'm Bomber Girl. This is my Shmup channel. I have another new channel dedicated to indie RPGs. I also have a channel dedicated just to cozy games, which couldn't be more different from Shmups. And between all of the alters in my system, I have 25 different YouTube channels. So you can find links to all of that on my link tree in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Never forget, Shmups forever.